up and transplant. So this year we expanded ours to a new one. So you'll see that it's just starting and I still have room at the end. Digging up all the small plants from this area over here. I'm just going to start transplanting them and we will have raspberries into October, which is amazing. However, I don't generally get a ton of them because Chad spends every day going out and eating them right off of the plants. One of our new additions this year as well, the cucumber trellis. I like to pickle cucumbers. And run up there. And these were just little bits of wood we had. It doesn't have to be expensive, but the idea is that all the cucumbers will then hang underneath and you can just go through and pick them off. I'm going to go back over here. It's kind of an exciting time in gardens when things start to pop up. One of the first things we see in March is generally the rhubarb, which always makes my family excited because that means rhubarb pie isn't very far away. And today, our bean plants started to pop up. We're starting to see those. Something else I learned as I was gardening is to be patient and to learn that not all seeds come up at the same time. Carrots and parsnips, which are over there, I won't see probably for another week, and that's okay. My mom and dad are here gardening. This is actually a community garden. The behind me is their section, and the next row always makes me think about my dad. My husband loves Prince Edward Island and wanted to grow potatoes. Put them in a dark place until they start to grow eyes, and then it's as making sure the eyes are up, covering them over, and from each potato you should get a plant that will bear 8 to 10 potatoes. So this is our row of potatoes, and if we go down a little bit further, you'll see some of the plants that are starting to come up. So these are all the beginnings of our potato plants. And when the plants start to turn yellow,
about 8 minutes.
8 minutes left. Okay. So it is really expensive if you go into a nursery and have to buy all the plants. I'd start a lot of mine from seed mid-March, and tomato plants are one of those things that always make me nervous because you have to start bringing them outside during the day and hardening them off. And when you've grown them inside, they tend to look a little bit sickly for the first couple of weeks when you plant them. This is a very, very good example right here, these ones here. If you look at the bottom, the leaves that were grown inside, they're kind of yellowy and wisny. But the new sprouts that have come out since we've brought them outside are a darker green, and that it's a thicker, darker part of the stem. And that's them getting used to being outside. So don't worry. I always thought that, oh, what am I doing wrong? A lot of gardening is just trial and error and learning how to grow things. I have lots of things that grow really well here and things that don't. Brussels sprouts, I try every year. One year they'll actually work. I have them planted, but they don't seem to like growing for me. But you get to know your soil, you get to know your garden, and you'll understand what works out well. With tomatoes, if it's something, because that's something we do grow a lot of for our salsa, one thing we did learn is you can't really grow them in bunches. You want them in nice long rows where they can get lots of air, and water them from the base. Try to keep the water off the leaves as much as possible, and the water going straight to the soil. And here. So something we use a lot is chicken manure. It's great for fertilizing. And this year, every year we add something new to our garden space. It's good to do a little bit at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself if you're starting from scratch. This big open space here that Chad's going to pan over doesn't look like much anything right now. The hope is that it will have a chicken coop and a room to run around in. No, we are not going to harvest the chicken for laying hens, just so we can have eggs. But this is going to become our chicken coop area. When we were enclose the garden and let the chickens run in there as well. And so that's sort of the plan that we've come up with. Maybe we'll do an update next year and we'll see how we did with chickens. Hopefully better than with the Brussels sprouts. All right. If you're someone that loves to grow herbs, you'll notice that this is the shadier part of our garden. Herbs, lettuces, they grow really well in here. And we go through a lot of dill and cilantro and chives. So we'll move along here. I know that a lot of people say, oh, there are things you can get right from the grocery store and stick in your garden. Here's proof of it. We bought 6 romaine right into the garden, and you can find a list on Pinterest of all of those things. And then, of course, our peppers and our jalapenos for our salsa. But this is the next area I wanted to talk about, lettuce. So the basil lettuce. Something that's interesting about this, and the reason it's in a box, is so that I can cover it up later on. They grow all through the year, and if you get the right kind of lettuce, you can keep cutting it and it will keep growing all summer long. Same thing with kale. Kale will continue to grow even into January if you just cover it over with plastic. So it's one of those things that you could have fresh kale, and I know kale is expensive. So in these times when our grocery bills are all going up, thanks to this pandemic we have, it's a great way to have fresh kale. And the last thing in our garden I'm going to show you is our peas. Now these will have to be trellised later on, but lots of fun having fresh peas and getting the kids to shell them. So I guess it's a great time right now because we have time, and just to try and don't get overwhelmed. Try a few things. Think about what you eat through the summer, and it's local. It helps our environment, and it also shows us how much we need to appreciate those wonderful farmers that produce our food for us, and all of our partners that work so hard to grow the food, because a small garden like this can keep us really busy, and those are the people feeding us. So that's what I want to say. Are there any questions? I don't know if I can't hear them, so.
I haven't seen any questions. There's been lots of comments about thanks for doing this and that sort of thing, but I haven't seen specific questions. So I think we're probably fairly good in terms of what you're doing out there. So I think we can, if anyone has a question, pop it onto the comment section quickly. In the meantime, I'll just pop on for a sec and talk a little bit about chocolate. Because when I was inspired by Chad and Shannon, and they're growing their maple syrup. Well, they're not growing their maple syrup, but they're making maple syrup, and they're supporting World Accord with it as a social enterprise. And my wife, Sandy, likes chocolate, and one year I got her a book on how to make it, and then finally we got some equipment on how to make it. So we set up a bean to bar enterprise, and we make some chocolate from scratch, right? We grind up the beans. Well, first we have to roast them. We grind them up, and we have to winnow them. And then after they're winnowed, then we have to put them into a melanger that will grind them up. And we put them in there with some milk solids and some organic cane sugar and some organic cocoa butter. And we make a very good bean to bar, all organic, all natural, handmade with love chocolate. And it's called the Caritas Chocolate Company. And we're not selling through any stores. We're kind of just making it through our home, and we're selling it through our networks to our family and friends and our neighbors. And if anyone wants to set up something similar like that they want to do in their area, we would be happy to help you with that as well. We could, and if it's chocolate exactly that you'd like to do, we'd be happy to help you set up with a little satellite shop in your area so that you could make Caritas chocolate as well. So anyways, you could give me a shout at World Accord. My email is dbarth@worldaccord.org. And I think I will let that go now. If you are interested in tiny houses, we have a person who's going to be sharing. Megan Gilbertson has been, she's been going down to Honduras since she was 14 years old, and she's been going every year since. And she's 28 now, so she's been going for 14 years, building several places, and always trying to live a little bit more sustainably. And Megan right now has got a tiny house that she has built. They've designed and built this tiny house, and it's a way of sustainable living as well. And so we're going to be sharing. She's going to be sharing about their tiny house, about some of the design considerations and the construction, and that will be happening at 4:30. So come back on at 4:30, and always just keep your eye open for Colleen, Clarissa, kind of popping on with other activities that she might have available for you to do. But for now, I'd like to sign off and say thank you again for joining us.
Dave.
If you'd like to make a donation, by all means, there's a spot down below.
Dave,
Yeah.
there are 3 questions in the chat.
Oh,
So
are there
I'd like to get to them.
questions?
Yes.
Okay, where are they?
Actually, there's 4 now. It's under the comments, so I'll read them. The first question is, what kind of wood do you use for the garden box?
Are Chad and Shannon still on?
They're just muted.
Hi. Yes. So the garden boxes, you want to make sure. Oh, unmute.
You're good.
We're not muted.
We're not muted.
good.
Can you hear me
Yeah.
now?
We can hear you.
Good. So the back of our boxes, we're sure not to use pressure treated wood because we didn't want any chemicals seeping in. So a lot of it is just raw wood, which does mean they do need to be replaced quite often. However, I do find that the boxes work for certain things. For instance, the blueberries require special pH garden soil. So I have to add sulfur and other things to make sure that they're correct pH. So I don't use a lot of garden boxes, but when I do, make sure you're using wood that isn't pressure treated or doesn't have chemicals in it. Cedar is the best.
Yeah, it seems to hold up a little bit better. We did use a lot of just plain spruce. So just your normal floor joists. So 2x10s, 2x8s are typically what we had purchased. So the couple things that I found online, and I haven't been able to actually truly fact check it, is that the new Sienna style pressure treated lumber is supposed to be safe to use, where the previous pressure treated, which is more of a green looking lumber, was not safe because of the copper arsenic they use to treat it, which stops the animals and things from actually eating it. So I want to fact check that one 100%, but that was the research that I found on that.
I just built some garden boxes for a friend. Actually, it was a social enterprise as well, because I built it for her for a donation for World Accord. And when she was pricing out those the garden-friendly pressure-treated wood, she found that it was just a small step up to cedar from there. You'd have to check in your area, but cedar works quite nicely as well, and it'll withstand it. For myself, I just used regular plain old 2x4s. They're not treated, but they're very, very cheap. They will eventually rot and I'll have to replace them. So that's one of the things. What else do we have here? Someone said, what did you start the sweet potato in?
What did I start the sweet potato in?
Yeah,
A glass.
a glass.
Just water out of the tap, and I sat the sweet potato in it. And then you have to be patient. You have to keep filling it up. You can see that I need to put some more water in, but I was carrying it outside, so I didn't. You just keep filling up the water and keep it in a window where there's sunshine. And I start them about 6, probably before they end up in the boxes. So again, end of March is a good time to put your sweet potato in the water.
Did you say you got about 50 plants off of that?
Keeping in mind that our water, somewhere there. Keep in mind our water is not treated.
Right.
It's well
So we're off a well. So the water, I'm not sure if the chlorine would have an effect on it or if there's enough in it to really cause an issue, but something to be careful with.
I have 25 plants so far, and there are a few more starting. So I think they would just continue to create plants, but each plant should produce about 8 to 10 sweet potatoes. So
awesome.
With 20 plants, that's 200 sweet potatoes, but it's also, it also, sorry?
Oh, I just said that's awesome.
It's also contained to the box space that you have. Some people have done them in bags. Some people do them in round containers. There are tons of ideas on Pinterest. We just didn't want to spend a lot of money, and we had this wood left over, so it made sense to do it this way for us.
Yeah, we had taken a note from you, Dave, and we actually, all of the boxes are lined with straw in the base. What my assumption was on that, and maybe you could agree with me or not, was that I believe that there's enough nutrients that will actually draw the root system down towards that from the soil and allow I think it's going to make if you put carrots in as an example, I think it would allow them to grow longer rather than being stunted by clay or something that you might put it in. That's kind of why we did the mounds here at our place too, because we're pretty much on rock. So
right.
we built our rows up. It'd be more of a conventional looking potato farm actually with the rows the way they're built in windrows. But it's because there's so much rock. We just need to get a little more soil for the vegetables to grow in.
Great, great. Have you tried sunflowers or other varieties of flower?
So we didn't make it down to our flower field because the bees are actually in our lower field by the lower pond. We did cultivate into that soil, 20 pounds of wild clover and flower seeds down there for the bees. We are doing what the bee professionals are saying, don't cut your lawns, leave, certain fields wild for the bees. And so that field that would generally get mowed is being left naturally, and we planted tons of wildflowers down there. It's our first time doing that, so maybe we'll post some pictures once the flowers come up. Mostly clover, and I do have sunflower seeds that I'm going to put down there as well.
Yeah, it's a mixture of probably 50 different types of seeds. Your bee bombs and asters and such.
Where do you get them all from?
USC, or whatever the name of it is now. The one that's attached to that Home Hardware in downtown Kitchener-Waterloo.
Oh, that's Ontario Seed Company.
Ontario Seed, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can purchase your stuff bulk in there, so that by the pound.
Okay.
It wasn't cheap, but I think totally worthwhile at the end of the day because they're perennials. They will continue to come back up, most of them, every year.
And seeds are becoming a little bit more expensive. So one of the things that we do try to do with tomatoes are really hard. I don't suggest starting there, but it's really easy to save bean seed, save seeds from a lot of the squashes. Seed saving and drying them out and putting them in paper bags at the end of the season or wrapping them in newspaper is a great way to save money on seeds the next year. And don't listen to those packages that say you have to use them within that year. I these as old as 4 years. Yes, they want you to go and buy new seeds, but nothing against the seed manufacturers. But if you don't have the money and you didn't use all your seeds, go ahead and put them in the ground. I've never had bad seeds.
Very good. And if anybody doesn't have a nice big piece of property like this, you know, you can find all kinds of videos on YouTube for doing, you know, in small spaces. So you can have a small garden in a small yard. You can have a garden that you do from buckets on your balcony. There's all kinds of things you can do. Matter of fact, we have a bean plant right now that's just growing in Sandy's office. It's never been outdoors and it's got beans on it. So just a little bit of light and some water and that bean plant is, I mean, they're like magical fruit, right? So.
Yeah, it's all about experimenting and having fun with it. It was harder for us to go up, and we had the luxury of being able to spread out, and so that's what we did. But yeah, you have to look at your space, and you have to look at what you're interested in growing, and just have fun with it, and let it be enjoyable.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, I haven't seen any new comments, so I think we can maybe let you guys go. And we'll call this session to an end. And please, you know, keep if you have questions or comments or concerns, please put them in the comment box. We'll continue to kind of monitor those, and whenever new comments come up, we'll try and make sure they get answered. Thank you very much, everyone, and hope to see you at 4:30 for Megan Gilbertson talking about her tiny house. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll sign off for now. Take care.
Bye.